StrayAllDay.com.
Tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques underneath the umbrella of one unified philosophy that is called work on your game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is freedom is not free. Before we get into this, I remind you all of two things. First of all, my daily motivation message guaranteed to have you focus, sharp, and on point. Also, the Monday motivation, focus, sharp, and on point every Monday or every day, respectively. All you got to do is be a member of my text community. It is free to join. Just text me at my number 305-384-6894. Once we start sending those messages out again, everybody who's in our text community will be getting those straight to your phone. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. That's the place where all of our coaching takes place. If you would like to have me as your direct coach, you would like to get access to our most important training, such as Bulletproof Mindset, 30 Days of Discipline to Work on Your Game System, ASAP Confidence, 25 hours, the Sell Yourself course, the Content Machine trainings, all of my tactical trainings when it comes to sales funnels, when it comes to pitching yourself, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to collaborations, the Dream 100, everything else in between. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com, and that's where you can get access to working with us directly. With that out the way, let's get into the topic here today, which is freedom is not free. Now, I remember hearing someone say this is a Toastmasters meeting that I was presiding over many years ago. And those of you who don't know what Toastmasters is an organization where people come together and basically practice some form of public speaking and communication. And someone was on the stage speaking, and they said that freedom is free. That's what they said in their, whatever we were talking about. They said freedom is free. And I didn't say anything. It was there. They had the stage and they had the floor to say whatever they were saying. But I always remembered them saying that. And I've heard some people allude to this concept as a false concept. I've heard people allude to this concept even to this day. And I knew that that person back then and the people who say it today simply don't know what they don't know. So today, I'm going to clear all that up and explain to you how the freedom that most of you have, that most of you are probably taking for granted, and you experience it as a given in your life, something that you've always had and you've always known, and you've never experienced that freedom being threatened, then you may be walking around thinking that this is just a normal thing, but that freedom is not as free as you think it is. And I'm going to explain why here today. Point number one, the topic once again today is freedom is not free. And when I say freedom, I don't necessarily just mean maybe the freedom that you thought about when you first hear the word. It can be freedom for anything that you wish to do, think, or say. Number one, the trade-off of freedom is safety and security. The trade-off of freedom is safety and security. I talked about this in episode 2708. Freedom and security are opposites. That if you want one, then you have to give up the other. They are opposites in terms of how you get one, you got to give up the other. You get the other, you got to give up the one. So the more free that you want to be, the more security and safety you must give up in order to have it. And think about what that means. If you just think about that for a second. If you want to be more free, you got to give up safety and security. What did we just talk about in yesterday's episode? We talked about why people comply, why people just go along with the crowd. Well, one reason that people go along with the crowd is because it's biologically and evolutionarily wired into us that when you are amongst the crowd, you are more safe than when you are isolated. And that's true. It is true. Robert Greene, the 48 Laws of Power, has a chapter that says, do not isolate yourself because isolation is dangerous. I believe it's chapter 18, but I may be wrong on the number. But that is one of the laws of power, that you don't want to be isolated because you are very easy to attack when you're isolated. You have no one around you, no one watching your back, no one watching your flank, no one protecting your flank. You're all by yourself. It's hard to defend every aspect of you when you can't see all 360 degrees around you. You can't defend everything at the same time. But when you're amongst the crowd, you can utilize the resources of other people to defend yourself. So it's 100% correct that when you give up the safety and the security of being in the crowd in order to not comply and to be more free to do what you want to do, you also put yourself in a position of peril. You put yourself in danger. This is the trade-off, folks. And the trade-off of staying amongst the crowd where you are safe and secure is that you don't have the freedom to do whatever you want to do, because as soon as you step out the lines of doing what you want to do, you're not part of the crowd anymore. So you give up the safety and security. You see how that works? That's why they're traded for each other. This is why I call them opposites. See, it's not that some of you may be thinking, if you're a smart three-dimensional thinker, you might be thinking, well, Dre, you know what? I could step outside of the group and be isolated for a moment, but then I'll create enough success that I can provide my own safety and security for myself. So now I can have the freedom and the safety and the security all at the same time. And you are not wrong in saying that. It's simply that it is not provided for you anymore as soon as you step outside of the line. See, if you choose to give up the safety and security of the group, now you got to provide your own safety and security, and that comes at a cost. And what's today's topic? Freedom is not free. So you got to pay for that safety and security. Whatever it costs, you got to pay for it. Is not given to you by being part of the group. When you're part of the group, you get safety and security as part of the package. You don't have to pay anything. You just got to be part of the group. What you're paying with is your freedom, because you can't do whatever you want to do. You have to follow what the group says. Now, as soon as you give up the safety and security of the group, now you got to pay for everything. Everything's on you. It's like when you're a kid living in your parents' home, a lot of the living expenses are not paid for by you. You're not paying the rent, you're not paying the mortgage, you're not paying for gas in the car, you're not paying the electric bill, you're not paying for the groceries. Now, you didn't pay for anything, but as soon as you move out, now you got to pay for everything. You got to pay your own car insurance, you got to pay your own rent, you got to buy your own groceries, you got to buy your own furniture, you got to keep the house clean. All those things that you took for granted when you were living with mom and dad, now you got to do it yourself. Not always easy. All right, this is the trade-off. This is the trade-off. So while it is not ideal for us to have a completely free society, as I said, because we would not have civilization at that point if everyone just did whatever they want to do, we wouldn't have social norms of behavior, and there would be no uniform way of communicating with each other either if we didn't have conformity in some way. You do have a wide range of choices in terms of how much freedom you would like to have, along with the costs of safety and security that you would have to give up in order to have it. You do have a lot of space to choose how you want to live, but understanding at the same time that there are no perfect scenarios in life. There are only trade-offs. And you know that because I told you that in episode 2174. There are no perfect scenarios. There are only trade-offs. So you got to decide, what trade-offs am I okay with in order to live a certain way? And which trade-offs am I not okay with? And therefore, I can't live this way because I don't want to deal with that trade-off. You don't want to deal with the trade-off of having cold winters where there is snow that needs to be shoveled, then you're probably not going to live in a place like Denver, Colorado, because they get snow every winter. All right, they're happy when they get snow, most of the people who live there. If you don't want to deal with tropical climate and high levels of humidity and a good amount of heat and very thick, humid air every day over the course of about 8 or 9 months a year, then you probably don't want to come move to South Florida, because that's the way it is. So you got to decide, which trade-offs are you willing to deal with and which ones are you not. You want more freedom, give up some of your safety. Put yourself in more precarious positions. And again, you're not putting yourself in a precarious position necessarily as the main reason that you're doing it, but you understand, in order to do this, I got to put myself in danger. If you want to be a champion kickboxer, you got to put yourself in the danger of stepping into the ring of someone who could knock your head off. That's the opposing fighter. If you want to be a champion, you got to beat those guys. Are you willing to deal with that danger? If not, stay safe and stay in the bleachers and don't get in the ring. As soon as you get in the ring, you're in a position of danger, but you're also in a position to win. You can't win without risking losing. This is how it works. So if you want more safety, again, decide which freedoms you're willing to give up in order to get it. And you can have the safety. And allow yourself to be constrained by whoever or whatever is providing the safety and security for you. That will be the group. So when you're amongst a group of people, they have norms. If you want to be part of this group, you got to follow the rules of the group. As soon as you stop following the rules of the group, you're not in the group anymore. So you're free to do whatever you want, but you no longer have our safety and protection. That's the deal. You remember the COVID scamdemic from many years ago? Yes, I said scamdemic. And make sure I'm enunciating that, so make sure everybody heard me. You can see this in action. We were all told that the scamdemic measures, such as putting a cloth mask on your face that clearly says on the box of the mask, this does not prevent the spread of any type of respiratory diseases or anything. The purpose of those cloth masks, they're called surgical masks for a reason. Surgical masks for a reason is so that when a surgeon is operating, that anything that comes out of their nose or mouth doesn't get into the open body of the person that they're operating on. That's the reason that the mask exists, not to block air particles. Doesn't even make sense. But anyway, those masks that we were required to wear, you had to wear them on your face sometimes in public places and sometimes on airplanes and grocery stores, all these kinds of things. During that scamdemic, that and the social distancing, staying 6 feet apart from each other, and remember in the grocery stores or at the post office, there would be little dots on the floor. Right, you stand here, another person stands there. And remember that? You all remember? It wasn't that long ago. We were all told that this is for our safety and security. We were told that, right? You were told that you get the jab that they ridiculously called a vaccine, which clearly wasn't a vaccine. They went and changed the definition of the word vaccine so that people who took the jab didn't feel stupid about taking a quote unquote vaccine that did not inoculate them against a virus, which is what the actual definition of vaccine always was until all of a sudden it needed to change because too many people got bamboozled and thusly would feel dumb if they went and looked up that definition. But anyway, we're not going to get too deep into that. We were told to not exercise our freedoms. We were told to not engage with each other. Isn't that what we were told? Now, what was the purpose? Why were we told to not exercise our freedom and engage with each other? We were told, don't exercise the freedom of having your face uncovered. Don't exercise the freedom of not putting a jab of, who knows, an experimental drug into your body. I didn't take the jab, but I know many of you did. I'm not knocking you for it, but let's just tell the truth. We were told, do not go outside and engage with other people and don't have events and don't have any type of mass gatherings because all of those things will endanger your safety. Isn't that what we were told? Okay, now we know, and I'm recording this in 2024. Hopefully all of you know what I'm about to tell you, that by now we all understand that all of that was bullshit. Right? All of it was bullshit. And we were told this. Why? Because if you do these things, then you'll be more safe and you'll be more secure, but you got to give up your freedom in order to have it. And those who exercise their freedom, they were putting everybody in danger. Isn't that what we were told? The White House put out a statement, and I believe it was at the end of 2020. No, it was the end of 2021. So this is when they still had a whole lot of the COVID bullshit going on. I believe end of 2021. This is when Joe Biden, Kamala Harris administration. They were in the White House. They put out a statement in December 2021 and said, for those who are unvaccinated, this is going to be a winter of despair and death, and it's going to be a cold winter. If any of you remember this statement, you can go look it up. It was a very ridiculous thing to say. It came out officially from the White House. It's a very ridiculous statement, and it was all fear-mongering. It was telling you how much danger you were putting yourself in by exercising your freedom. That's what it was telling you. And we all know, again, years later, we know that was bullshit. Hopefully you all know it was bullshit. If you didn't know, you know now. We were told that anybody who dared exercise their freedoms, despite this quote unquote pandemic going around, they were threatening grandma and they were threatening you and they were going to hurt everybody. So this is what they were doing. If you pay attention, what were they doing? They were trying to mobilize the masses of conformists, i.e., those of you who listen to everything that they said. They were mobilizing you to shame and condemn anyone who did not conform. That's exactly what they did. So what we're talking about here today connects directly with what I talked about in yesterday's episode. They tried to shame you simply because you didn't go along with what everybody else was doing. Oh, you don't want to wear a mask? Oh, you don't care about everybody else's health? You didn't get the jab? Oh, you don't care if you kill grandma? Oh, you don't want to follow the social distancing norms? Hey, don't breathe on me. You're going to give me the virus. Isn't this what we were told? Anybody got a bad memory? That happened, right? Okay, if I got this wrong, somebody let me know. Now, we all know that all of this was complete bullshit, but the experience illustrates my point perfectly. Does it not? I think it does. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is freedom is not free. Number 2, whatever freedom you do have that you did not directly pay for, understand that somebody did pay for it. First rule of economics, folks. One of the first rules. First rule is supply and demand, but one of the other first rules, besides that one, is that there is no such thing as a free lunch. I took an economics class in the summer between my sophomore and junior years of college because I had changed my major from, I think I started out in college as like either computer science or psych major, something like that. HDFS, Human Development Family Studies, something like that, one of those. But then I changed my major to business halfway through college and I needed to catch up on some credits. So I stayed that summer in Altoona, Pennsylvania and took summer classes at my college, Penn State, Altoona. And I took an economics class that summer, and that professor, there's only one thing I remember him saying because he would say it all the time. He said he had a nephew who was like 2 or 3 years old. He said, my 2-year-old, he was very proud. He said, my 2-year-old nephew knows the most important rule of economics. There is no such thing as a free lunch. That's the one thing I remember from that class. So thank you, Penn State, for the education. No such thing as a free lunch. And it is true. What that means is anything that you have in life that you are taking for granted, understand somebody paid for it, even if you did not pay for it. Somebody paid for that. All right, guaranteed. There is nothing free. All right, so whatever you have that you think's free, if it's not part of your personal tools, somebody paid for it. I mean, your personal tools, meaning your physical body, your brain, your arms, your legs, all right, those come to you free. Everything else is paid for. Even if you can't trace the payment back to a specific person, understand it was paid for by someone, guaranteed. And understand that if you are not making the payments now, somebody is still making the payment in order for you to continue having that thing that you may be assuming comes to you standard. It is not standard. It is not owed to you. It is paid for. And if that payment stops, whoever's making that payment stops making that payment, if you don't pick up the payments where they leave off, you will lose that thing that you think is owed to you, that many people these days call their quote unquote rights. Right. Those things are paid for. And I'll tell you exactly who's making the payments. First of all, your rights are not granted to you by the United States government. Whatever rights you think you have, those are not granted by the United States government. Your right to free speech, for example, is not granted by the United States government. Yes, it's in the Constitution, but that Constitution is outlining which rights that the government is required to defend of yours, not that they are giving to you. They're not giving you something. The government doesn't give you anything. You are capable of taking care of yourself. By the way, any of you listening to this who is capable of taking care of yourself, the government gives you nothing. They take from you. That's why we pay taxes. When's the last time the government gave you anything? What did the government give you? Name something. Oh, you say they gave you a stimulus check during the scamdemic? Okay, well, how much have you paid in taxes? Okay, compare that to the stimulus check. They haven't given you anything. Okay, you're in the red. All right, the government takes when you are capable of taking care of yourself. They only give to people who are not capable of taking care of themselves, and that giving still has hooks in it. Because of what I just tell you, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So if the government is giving you something for free, quote unquote, you got to give something up. What are you giving up? Your freedom. This is the way it works. So whatever rights you believe you have, rights are taken, folks. Freedom is taken. Freedom is not granted. Freedom is not handed out. It is taken. So the more free you want to be, you got to decide what you're willing to take in order to get it. But let me not step on the rest of my points here. If you live in the United States of America, which most of you do, and you probably feel relatively safe on a daily basis, most of you feel relatively safe. Right? Most of you, when you leave your house in the morning, you are not paranoid about whether or not you will live in order to make it back home. Most of you reasonably expect you'll make it back home without facing any real life or death danger, correct? Okay. Now, why is this? Why do you feel relatively safe on a daily basis when it comes to the possibility of, let's say, foreign invaders or even people around your neighborhood, just everyday people? Why is it? Why do you feel relatively safe? Maybe it's because you are a card-carrying gun holder. Maybe you are a big Second Amendment advocate and you carry a gun. Not only do you have guns at home, but you keep one with you even when you go somewhere, you got a gun. So you feel relatively safe because you know if somebody tries to start some shit, it's going to be some shit. All right, you're all right with that. All right, so you feel safe for that. So the payment that you're making to feel safe is that you're carrying that gun. All right, the gun wasn't free, was it? Okay, you had to go get it, and you had to learn how to use it, and you had to be willing to use it. All right, those are all payments that you had to make. For those of you who don't carry guns, why do you feel safe? Because we have police. You know that if something happens, you can call the cops, and you reasonably expect that they will save you. And or you reasonably expect that everybody else is following the rules the way that you are, so that most people are going to be nice and calm and polite, and they're not going to try to violate your freedoms. Therefore, you're not going to get into any life or death situations. There's a payment that comes with that. What's the payment? Payment is all of us are deciding to conform to the societal rules. That's the payment. If everybody decided not to, what would happen? Let's say there were no police and no laws, and everybody could just do whatever they want. How many of you would survive? If it just became a free-for-all and everybody could do whatever they want and all the savages of society just start going around looking for the weaklings who they can take advantage of, how many of you would survive? How many of your families would survive? Or would you be willing to do what it takes to defend yourself against the savages when they realize that, oh, it's open season on everybody? Would you make it? Would you be a savage or would you be a victim of one? You ain't got a choice but to pick one. So if you live in the United States and you feel relatively safe, let's say when it comes to foreign invasions, why do you feel relatively safe that China or Russia is not going to invade us today? The reason you feel safe is because we have a military that will defend you. And that military is paid for with your tax dollars. The police are paid for with your tax dollars. The neighborhood watch is, I guess, not directly your tax dollars, but there's a payment that's happening for that. And someone is paying for that, folks. There's a neighborhood watch where you live. Somebody's paying for that. If you live in a gated community, the price you paid for the home or whatever you pay in taxes or dues or fees to the association in which that gated community, where that gated community exists, pays for the security of you feeling relatively safe. You can send your kids outside, not lock your doors and leave the house in the morning. You're paying for that. That ain't free. All of these things have payments, folks. If you don't own a gun, you can't physically fight with your hands, you're not capable of physically fighting off an intruder who comes into your house, you still feel relatively safe because we have a military that's paying with their time, money, attention, and resources to make sure we don't get invaded by an outsider. And at least we pay for the cops. So even if you get invaded by an insider, an American, someone in the country, or someone in the country of America, because we got a bunch of people who shouldn't be here, but they are, so we can't call them Americans. But even then, you feel like at least we got the cops. All right, most of you, at least you believe that. Now, whether it's true or not is a different story. When you get in your car and drive on highways, you see traffic lights telling you to stop and go, right? Green signs on the highways telling you which exit to get off at. Those didn't get there for free. Somebody paid for that. Those people who put those signs up, they have jobs. Those jobs are paid for by the government. The government is paid by you, also known as taxes. So they take that money out of your pocket or out of your paycheck in the form of taxes. None of it is free. Everything is paid for. So I'm giving you all these examples just to help you understand everything that you think is free or you don't even think about. Understand that you have paid for it in some way or somebody's paying on your behalf. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is freedom is not free. Number 3, looking into your future. If you want to have more freedom, more autonomy, and more leverage to move about the world any way that you wish, understand that you must give up some of your safety and security in order to get it. If you would like to move about the world in different ways, more ways, how you wish, when you wish, and where you wish, with whom you wish, you must give up some of the safety and security that you have today in order to get it. So whatever level of autonomy you have now, if you want more, you have to give up something to get it. Again, let me say it one more time. There is no such thing as a free lunch. You want to get to a higher level of anything in which you live right now, any aspect of your life where you want to get to a higher level than you are now, there is a cost that must be paid. I was just watching this interview with Tom Brady. He was being interviewed by Patrick Bet-David. I think this was a couple of years ago when the interview happened. And Tom Brady was talking about, Patrick Bet-David asked Tom a question about how he was able to extend his career so far, so long, because Tom Brady played till he was like 45 years old or something like that. And Tom Brady's answer, it was a long interview, but his answer, I just remembered, I was just listening to it today. His answer was he and his trainer over the years, they were looking at his body and figuring out how he could stay as healthy as possible and play as long as possible and get all the longevity and all that. And Tom they were looking at all the stuff he was putting in his body and doing to and with his body. And he realized that in order for his playing years to extend further, he was going to have to give up some of the things that he enjoyed because they created inflammation in the body. And the older he got, the less he could deal with that inflammation. He couldn't just bounce back and get over it like when he was in his 20s. He couldn't do that when he was in his late 30s. So he had to give up certain foods. And he mentioned a bunch of things that he had to give up because it created inflammation. And they came up with the whole system. And then he created his whole TB12 method, which is like a manual and all these, basically like a nutrition, some basically a lifestyle that you can live to be in your best physical shape. And I know a lot of men who I know actually, at least when it first came out, they were following this TB12 method. I don't know how many are still following it today. The point being, for him to extend his career, that's what he wanted, he had to give something up. He had to give up some of the freedom that he had of eating whatever he wanted to eat. Any of you who's an athlete, you understand this. There are certain foods you can't keep eating if you're going to keep performing. All right, something got to go. All right, there's a trade-off. You want to keep eating the foods, okay, but you can't play as long. You want to keep playing, okay, you got to give up those foods. What's it going to be? All right, one or the other. So any of you wants to keep working your job and putting in all the hours you do, but you still want to get your body in shape, well, okay, the freedom you have to give up, or the security rather you have to give up, and the safety you have to give up is the convenience of sleeping in. You got to wake up early even when you don't feel like it, so you can work out before you go to work. All right, there's a trade-off to everything. So what are you willing to give up in order to move yourself forward? I work with a lot of entrepreneurs who are either already have or they're on their way to transitioning out of, let's say, working for the government, working for the military, working in corporate America, or being a professional athlete. A lot of people I work with are either in the process of doing that or they have done that. And all these positions that I just mentioned are all full-time employment, right? Government, military, corporate, professional athlete. These are all full-time jobs where you have the safety and the security of a consistent paycheck. In entrepreneurship, there is no consistent paycheck. There's no paycheck in entrepreneurship. There's no bi-weekly check when you're an entrepreneur. So yet, despite this, increasingly more and more people are jumping into the entrepreneurial space anyway, because they have come to understand that in trading away the safety and security of that check, they're giving themselves the potential for massive freedom. Not a guarantee, potential for massive freedom. So the only question you need to ask yourself is, how free do you expect or want to be in your future? And then, how much safety and how much security are you willing to give up in order to have it? Should I ask you that question again? How free do you expect or want to be in the future, and how much safety and security are you willing to give up in order to have it? Good news about all of this is that you can get yourself to the point where you have all the freedom you want and all the security you want, but you probably can't get both at the same time when you first step in. So when you take that first step towards freedom, you got to give up some safety and security and be in a, let's call it an endangered position maybe for a time until you get your footing where you want to be. This space is also known as the void. Again, talked about in episode 2733. And this is where you have the opportunity to create all the freedom that you want. And with that freedom, now you can go get back that safety and security. This is the trade-off, and many people don't want to make this trade-off. It's the reason why many people are never able to even get close to the freedom that they want, because they simply don't want to pay the cost. But remember the rules of economics. All right, these are rules. These are rules that can't be broken. All right, there is no such thing as getting something for free. You got to give something up in order to get it. Recapping today's class, which is freedom is not free. I remember hearing somebody say this years ago, and some people still say it to this day. It is absolutely not true. Number one, the trade-off of freedom is safety and security. The more freedom you want, the more safety you have to give up. The more safe you want to be, the more freedom you have to give up. Look around at your life, and you will see this 100% true all the time. Number two, whatever freedom you do have that you did not directly pay for, understand that it is being paid for, just not by you, but it is being paid for. There is no such thing as a free lunch in life. Anything that you have that is outside of your physical body, your physical tools, outside of that, it is being paid for. Somebody paid for it, or you're paying for it. And if whoever is paying stops paying, it will go away. Number three, looking into your future, if you want to have more freedom, more autonomy, more leverage to live how you want to live, move how you want to move, do what you want to do with who you want to do it with, you must give up some of your safety and security that exists in your life right now. That's an actually very simple equation. It may not be easy to do, but it's a very simple thing. And if you would like to be more safe and more secure in your life, you got to give up some of your freedom. That's how it works. Now, you can get to the point where you have both at the same time, but you must live in the void for a while, where you are going after the freedom, but you are not safe or secure at all in the process of getting there. You can get there, but understand that's a trade-off of going there. That said, text me, see you in my community. Numbers down below in the description. Also, Work on Your Game University. You would like to learn how to step into that freedom, have some balls, give up the safety and security to create the freedom you want, and then create your own safety and security rather than that is prescribed to you by the group and by conformity. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. We're looking for high-level performance. We want to perform at your highest level consistently and produce more results in your life right now. Work on your game. Dre, all